Welcome to the Business Spotlight series. My name is Steve Kiyama, and I'm the franchise owner for Action Coach in Western Fairfax, Virginia. And I'm your host today of the Business Spotlight podcast. Today, I've got the pleasure to introduce Raymond Peterson, founder and CEO of DNA Analytics Inc., as my guest. And today, we're going to talk about Raymond's business, his journey into business ownership, challenges, best practices, and share a peek into what it's really like to own, build, and operate a business. So if this is your first time on the channel, be sure to like and subscribe to get notifications when a new show like this one drops. So Raymond, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here today. And if you would, please give us a little bit of background about who you are and tell us a little bit about your business.
Hi, Steve. Well, thank you for having me here today, and I'd love to share my story. Yes, so I was a researcher at the National Cancer Institute in Frederick, Maryland, and was studying disease genes and realized that there was an opportunity for software to help scientists both find disease genes and to create clinical diagnostics to help patients. So I founded DNA Analytics and brought some of the technology from the National Cancer Institute and also partnered with a professor at the University of Maryland, College Park, named Jason Kahn. And he brought in scientific skills that I did not have. I was more on the computer and programming side, and he was on the biochemistry side. And so we've developed a software that helps diagnostic companies develop gene diagnostic tests for the marketplace faster and for less money.
Awesome.
Well, thank you. So that's what the business does. So it is a high-tech business in the biotechnology area, and it does require expertise. But I think a lot of companies require a lot of expertise that is perhaps not as apparent from what the sign on the outside says. So I don't think that we're all that unique in that respect. And so what we do is we gain clients by convincing them that by using our software platform that they are able to develop their products faster and get to the market faster, and that as they run them through the clinical lab, they'll have sort of a cleaner, more robust result, and they won't have as many dropouts and failures.
Okay. Okay. Cool. That is interesting. Who's a typical kind of client?
So a typical client would be a company like Billion to One, which
Hmm.
actually just went public this fall.
Hmm.
And they're in the maternal health space and are
Hmm.
also moving into the cancer space. And so for maternal health, this is actually a really good example of the ways in which our software is used and algorithms are used. Is that when women are thinking about becoming pregnant or are pregnant, they are very interested in the health of the fetus and whether perhaps
Hmm.
the fetus may have any genetic abnormalities, something like
Hmm.
cystic fibrosis or a missing chromosome. In the old days, the technology was that you actually had to stick a needle into the mother and draw the fluid from the amniotic fluid from the fetus or from the amniotic sac, and which is invasive. It has some risk. Today, it's possible to just do a blood test on the mother.
Hmm.
As it turns out, there is fetal DNA that circulates in the mother's blood.
Ah.
And the technology is sensitive enough now that even though it's just a small amount of DNA, and the reason it's circulating is because, well, there is the passage of blood to feed the growing baby, and then the waste product comes out, and in that waste product, there's some of the baby's DNA. And so, what Billion to One does is they look at the mother's genetics, and if she is a carrier of a potential disease-causing gene, like cystic fibrosis, they'll then do another test and isolate out the baby's DNA and be able to test that to see whether the baby is also a carrier.
Okay.
which they and not just a carrier, but you typically in this case would say need two copies of the genes because you have two copies of each gene. If just one is bad, sometimes that's not a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And say cystic fibrosis, you need two bad copies, so they're able to detect that
Mm-hmm.
just from the minute trace of the DNA from
Mm-hmm.
the baby.
Mm-hmm.
And so what their business is, billion to one, is that they work with physicians and hospitals. And so if the physician is talking to a expectant mother and they're concerned about the gene, of having, a genetic issue, they would then take a blood draw from the woman, send it out to billion to one would test it and send the report back
Mm-hmm.
after doing
Good.
all the laboratory work.
Okay. Which is the part that you guys do? What?
So what we do is that when billion to one has to actually develop that genetic test. So
Mm-hmm.
for example, the cystic fibrosis gene, that has a particular gene sequence.
Mm-hmm.
There are, as many of you know, with DNA, it's actually made up of only four units.
Mm-hmm.
The biological units or biochemistry units are called A, G, C, and T. Those are the chemical symbols. And but there's 3.2 billion of those letters in the
Mm-hmm.
human genome,
Mm-hmm.
which means, in part because of evolution too, that genes sometimes are somewhat related because they sort of have evolved from each other. But what's a real trick to be able to look at that specific gene sequence and to find a way to detect just that one gene sequence and not all the other genes in the human genome. So that's what our software does. Our software
Okay.
analyzes that gene sequence, compares it to the human genome, and in a very fine-grained analysis, is able to identify the best location in that gene to detect whether that gene has the abnormality or not. With that information, then our clients, customers, well, so the active ingredient, if you will, or the detection ingredient in these tests are actually manufactured short sections of DNA. They're only maybe 20 or 30 of these bases long of the A, G,
Mm-hmm.
Cs, and Ts. But even still, on a sort of a random basis, that 20 bases has a number of potential positions in the genome that it could also map to. And so
Mm-hmm.
you only want to detect the one location.
Mm-hmm.
So what they do is after running our software, they have a lot more confidence that that piece that needs to be manufactured about 20 bases long or 25 bases long is the correct one. And so they get that manufactured from a specialty manufacturer. It's called
Mm-hmm.
oligonucleotide synthesis, where
Mm-hmm.
nucleotide is a more technical word for those bases, the A's, G's, C's, and T's. Oligo means several, so
Mm-hmm.
if they're 20, an oligonucleotide is several of the bases strung together. And then they manufacture those. They run them through the laboratory on test samples and develop their tests that way.
Mm. Okay.
And then and that laboratory processes that can be very time consuming for optimization, both time consuming and expensive because biotech laboratories are very expensive to run.
Mm.
You typically have very both high priced equipment. Some of the
Mm-hmm.
sequencers that are used today are $1 million each,
Ooh.
and so time on the instruments is very valuable,
Mm-hmm.
and so they can. Getting through that process faster and for less cost and having a better result at the end is worth it for them to license our software so that they don't have to sort of invent this from scratch themselves.
Got it. Got it. Are there many competitors in this kind of a field?
So it is specialized, but there are competitors. Some
Mm-hmm.
of the larger companies, like QIAGEN and Roche, certainly have an in-house team.
Mm-hmm.
Our algorithms are more advanced than theirs, but
Mm-hmm.
convincing large companies like that we
Mm-hmm.
actually have done something that they didn't invent is can be a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Although we have done work for Illumina, which is one of the largest sequencing
Mm-hmm.
manufacturers,
Mm-hmm.
and we have done work for BioSearch, which is an
Okay.
oligosynthesis company, among others.
Okay.
And then in terms of competition, yes, there's maybe one or two or three other companies in the U.S.
Okay.
that do very similar work to us,
Okay.
almost identical.
Okay. Okay. Very good. How far have you scaled so far? How big is the team? How many
Good
different
question.
roles are there in the team?
Yes. So we've had about So we're about a 6 to 7 person company.
Mm-hmm.
So we're still small.
Mm-hmm.
The process that we've had to go through to develop our product is
Mm-hmm.
that we had to we had to train artificial intelligence algorithms and statistical algorithms. And so we had about $5 million of scientific funding
Mm-hmm.
from various sources,
Mm-hmm.
from the federal government. There's things
Mm-hmm.
called Small Business Innovative Research Grants that we've won through a variety of institutions, the National Health, the CDC, and the Army and the Air Force to develop our product. And
Mm-hmm.
so that allowed us to generate data in the laboratory to train our algorithms.
Mm-hmm.
But then from there, it's been taking those algorithms and making them in a software package that's usable for
Mm-hmm.
others and not just by us who know exactly what they are and how to use them.
Mm-hmm.
So we have put that together and are still sort of at the tail end of product development. So we do have clients, we have paying customers, but we're still sort of merging between product development and clients and gaining clients.
Good, 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 good. Very good. Um, are there a lot of customers out there? Is this something where the market is fairly sizable?
So that's a good question. And so it depends on your frame of reference.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be surprised at how many companies are out there
Mm-hmm.
that are developing genetic diagnostics and genetic vaccines
Mm-hmm.
vaccines, and gene therapies. There's thousands of
Mm-hmm.
companies, both in the US and across the world.
Mm-hmm.
So a number of, say, thousands to 5,000 might be a very small market
Mm-hmm.
for some people, because obviously like the Apple iPhone, everybody's using smartphones, so it's 6 billion people in the world or something are potential customers of
Mm-hmm.
of
That's a
Apple.
big market.
That's a big market. For us,
Mm-hmm.
it's not as big,
Mm-hmm.
but it tends to be a higher ticket priced item. We tend to work with them over a number of years
Mm-hmm.
and establish a relationship that way. And so
Mm-hmm.
for us, a success, we're not looking to necessarily be the size of an Apple or to be $1 billion company. Maybe more of, in the tens of millions of dollar company,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe being, a 10 or 20 person company. And then our exit strategy is that both to have the revenue that makes it attractive to an acquirer, but also the technology, so that one of the
Mm-hmm.
larger companies like QIAGEN or Thermo Fisher would say, what you've done is really great.
Mm-hmm.
Let's bring that technology in house.
Good, good, good. What is one thing you wish more people knew about your business, and who would they be?
So the people that I wish knew more about, of course, is getting into the marketplace and making people and companies that could use it more aware of the product is
Mm-hmm.
would be our number one goal.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the way that we are approaching our sales and marketing is there are specialty news sites that track
Mm-hmm.
the industry,
Uh-huh.
and so we subscribe to those specialty
Good,
news services.
good.
And when interesting companies, come through that news service, we go onto LinkedIn and connect with their executive team
Mm-hmm.
and let them know what we're doing, and then
Mm-hmm.
follow up.
Good.
And then we're able to scrape their email addresses, and then we put out monthly posts to the email addresses. So that's who I wish knew more about them. What do I wish they knew was like the product market fit of how much this will save them and accelerate their business.
That makes perfect sense. That makes very perfect sense. Let's switch gears a little bit. What stimulated the decision to go into business in the beginning?
So that is a really good question, and I would say that perhaps some of it was a little bit frustrated being in more of a research than a business environment, because I had grown up in a bit of a small business environment. And for me, things like, having project plans, which can be really hard to do, but
Mm,
still a project plan of like, what is this going to be? What is it going to take? planning out and saying, okay, that this is the iteration. When we get here, we're done, and we're not doing any more. Whereas in science, it's often and having, I guess, like a finished product at the end.
Mm,
Whereas in science, it's more about the process.
hmm.
And there are some really good project managers in science, but often you get an answer and then you're like, well, that answer is really interesting. That just gives us five more really interesting questions. Let's just keep going.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, well, okay, but no, we've got to stop. So that was one thing. Another is that being at the NIH and being still a little bit junior, I looked around. There were still a fair number of young people there who were in, age-wise, relatively young, but in essentially tenured positions.
Hmm.
And I'm thinking, it's going to be 30 years before they retire,
Hmm.
and all the tenured positions are taken.
Hmm.
So, what's my path?
Hmm.
How am I going to get there?
Hmm.
Lots of people make different decisions. Maybe they go into academia, this, that, the other. Perhaps I was a little too impatient
Hmm.
and felt that, this is a really growing market for
Hmm.
biotechnology. Not
Hmm.
so many people understand it. And I felt that I was in a perfect position to take advantage of it. Some people have the idea that biotech companies are these things that you put, tens of millions of dollars of years in for 30 years, and maybe at the end you'll get a drug at the end. That's one kind of biotech business.
Yeah.
But others are tool companies, and we're a tool
Hmm.
company.
Hmm.
And so, especially because it's software, we felt that, even though software developers are expensive, that it's an order of magnitude less to develop products than it
Hmm.
is if you actually need a biotechnology laboratory.
Hmm.
So that was the thinking at the time, is that
Hmm.
for not a huge investment, we could start the company and kind of see if we could grow it the old-fashioned way
Hmm.
of developing product, finding product market fit, and then getting investment from our clients. Investment meaning actual revenues, because we have a product that fits their needs, and going out and
Hmm.
finding more clients.
Fantastic. Fantastic. You alluded to a kind of exit strategy. What are you hoping to get out of this yourself, personally?
So on the non-material side, it's the I guess the satisfaction of knowing that I was right, that I was able to identify a market need.
Hmm.
I was able to develop a product that fits that market, and that others value that product and agree
Hmm.
with me.
Mm. That's a good one.
Yeah. Now, of course, what I haven't talked about as much as patience, but I mean, there is an aspect here of me believing that biotechnology is as expensive as it can be for patients, but it does help improve health, and that we're having an impact on the health of the nation in the world. So that's a thing that some people often say in the business, and that is true too. And I guess I feel like when I go to bed tonight, I'm not concerned about the morality of the kind of business I'm in. Like and not that all biotech is great, but I feel like I'm maybe contributing to the world as well.
Hmm. Very good. Very good. When you look ahead 5 or 10 years, what do you see in the future?
So in 5 years, I certainly would like to see us to where we are, well established and revenue and certainly profitable. And
Hmm.
in 10 years, that we have been able to translate that into an exit strategy and an acquisition.
Good.
Which isn't necessarily to say that I would retire. I know lots of people who remain active until almost the day that they die, and so I've been healthy so far, and I hope that that will continue to be the case.
Yeah, what brings satisfaction, to be perfectly honest with you. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah. What do you see as the key challenges getting to that stage, getting to where it's, let's call it acquirable?
sure. So the key challenges are that I would say that we would have benefited or could potentially benefit from more investment, capital investment in the
Hmm.
company.
Hmm.
Because of that, it's been a slower go,
Mm-hmm.
and I've had to apply my own technical expertise, perhaps
Mm-hmm.
more than I wished, rather than being able to hire a larger team to do that.
Yep.
On the other hand, as probably many both business owners and entrepreneurs and even funded companies are looking at, is that it's a very tricky balance. Do you
Mm-hmm.
really want that money?
Mm-hmm.
And what strings come
Mm-hmm.
attached with it?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe if you've been at this for a while, like we have, that if you take in the money, then that really brings in, like, you have to hit an exact milestone within a certain amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be really challenging. And it's not that
Mm-hmm.
we don't have plans to do that, but if the plans don't work out, then now you've got other owners who are perhaps less patient than you are,
Yeah.
and may not be willing to fund the company more. So
Mm-hmm.
we've really wanted to get ourselves to the point where we really do have the product market fit down, that the product is fully developed, and that we're increasing our revenue at a point. And
Good.
at that point, we would start to go out and look for perhaps
For,
investment.
yeah.
The other thing that I would say about that is, in some businesses, there's actually perhaps well-known physical assets that you could borrow on. So, for example, if you're going to start a business with a building and you need to buy a building, you can get financing for that building. I mean, you have to have revenue to pay that mortgage off, but that's something that's sort of well established. In our business, there isn't that kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. We don't really have a physical presence. It's software.
Mm-hmm.
So there's really nothing that we could buy that a traditional bank would lend on.
Right.
If we were, say plumbers and wanted to increase the fleet of a plumbing business, then we needed another truck. If your revenue can support it, a bank might be willing to lend you the money to buy another truck.
Right.
For us, we don't really have that sort of physical, tangible assets to pursue,
Mm-hmm.
to borrow money on. So, in some ways that's a challenge. But we have been able to take advantage of other aspects, such as the federal research funding, and namely
Mm-hmm.
the Small Business Innovative Research. So
Mm-hmm.
that is an area of non-dilutive funding that
Mm-hmm.
they pay us on a contract to help develop the product, and we don't owe
Mm-hmm.
them anything afterwards. So we've had that. So that's how we've been funding the business and to funding the development, as well as with our own money and family and friends.
Very good. Very good. Based on what you've learned so far, is there anything you would do differently if you were starting your business up now, today, knowing what you know now?
So knowing what I know now, what we do is relatively idiosyncratic, except to those who are in the industry who are using it. Perhaps I would have, rather than pursuing this specific kind of product, I perhaps would have chosen a product that would have been more generally knowledgeable. So, for example, when I'm at cocktail parties and try to explain to people what I do, it's not quite as easy to explain it when they ask more penetrating details, like, oh, well, how do you develop a genetic test? It's like, well, let me tell you about biotechnology.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas to say, oh, well, what we do is, when we develop genetic tests, and if if you're concerned about cystic fibrosis, we've got a product for you.
Mm-hmm.
In some ways that's a little easier to explain.
Mm-hmm.
And also perhaps a product or industry area for which there's an established market, where there is our marketing reports and people agree that there actually is that market out there.
Mm-hmm.
So the cystic fibrosis testing market, you can find a research report that will tell you what that global market is and
Mm-hmm.
where it's growing. For us, there's market researches on sort of what's called bioinformatics of software and biotechnology. Those areas there's market research for, but they don't delve down as deeply or into our real specific niche. So it's a little hard to know exactly what the market is, although we're very confident that it's certainly enough of a market that we could support, 10 or 20 people profitably, and have enough revenue that would be personally a viable business. It may
Mm,
not be something that a venture capitalist necessarily would have the immediate notion that this is something that's going to be huge.
mm. Interesting. Interesting. That's good. That's actually a really good insight. I think a lot of people jump past the is there a market question and jump straight into the product um, without ever asking that question.
Right. Well, in some ways we did that in the beginning. Not
Hmm.
exactly if we build it, they will come. I mean, I saw people struggling as we were at our laboratory to for the kinds of things that we've developed the software to address that problem.
Hmm.
So there's definitely a problem, and other people have it. Is it a big enough problem and could be explainable enough and scalable enough that a venture capitalist would be interested in? Perhaps not.
Hmm. Well, that the time will tell. You're probably not quite far enough along that you want to take that risk yet.
Right.
Yeah. Cool. Cool. So let's we could keep on going, but let's start
Sure.
to head towards wrapping up.
Sure.
Um, Here's a few rapid fire questions. So kind of off the cuff. What would you say is the key to success for you?
I would say it's two things. One is perseverance, and two is there's a good fit between sort of my personality and my goals in life, and my aptitudes with what the product is.
Hmm.
So I may not be the best in the world, but perhaps close. And so for what the product has needed to be developed, I've been a really good person to help develop that product.
Hmm. Good, good. If you and I were at the coffee shop just chatting, and somebody walked in talking about a business he was getting ready to start up, what's one piece of advice you would share with that person?
I would say that if you're not a numbers person and paying attention to it, be sure to have somebody on your team or a fractional person who's really going to be watching the numbers for you. Because
Good.
if you lose sight of that, then you're really just sort of, on quicksand.
Yeah.
And you need to know where every penny is
Hmm.
going.
Hmm. Where's it going to and where's it coming from?
Exactly.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. What's a book you're reading now or read recently that's had impact on how you're doing what you're doing?
Yeah, well, that's a really great question. And this might be a little bit of an off the wall or weird answer, but for me, one of my passions in life beyond the business is bicycling. And so
Hmm.
there's a book called The Training Bible for Cyclists.
Hmm.
And it's basically a how to book on how to go about it.
Hmm.
And it has, well, the 10 Commandments. And the 10 Commandments are things like, eat well, get a lot of rest, get a lot of sleep, be very clear on what it is you're trying to accomplish,
Hmm.
and be on a plan that is tailored for what you're trying to accomplish and
Hmm.
stick to the plan.
Hmm. Very good. Very
So,
good. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. You follow up. You had sounded like you were ready to share another point there.
No, just, some people don't like the sports analogies, but for me, I think there's sort of an overlap, and different sports have different needs. But for me, an endurance sport really is about just stick to itiveness, and you'd be
Yes.
surprised where you get when you sort of have a nice little consistent routine, and just turn the handle on that routine, and in 6 months or every day you may not see any change, but in 6 months or a year you'll probably look back and say, wow, made a lot of progress toward the goals in the last year.
Now, this is where the goal is more important than the path.
Yes.
You can find out a path is got a dead end in it.
Yes.
If the goal is more important, you can find a new path.
That's right.
Yeah. Just keep going. Keep the goal in front of you. Yeah.
and adjust along the way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You've had a great journey. You've learned a lot. I'm
Thank
assuming
you.
you've had a lot of fun in the process.
There certainly have been very ecstatic times,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes not. But yes, we when you have a success that's really hard won, it's very gratifying.
What of this process have you been most proud of in the business?
Well, I guess for me, that every day I do things that I enjoy.
Mm,
And I also have people involved in the company who are good, also taskmasters that keep me
mm,
on task. And when they say, Raymond, remember, there are these things that you don't enjoy so much and you're not doing them. We've got scheduled at 11 a.m. today. We're getting on Zoom or we're having a meeting and we're just doing them. And we're
mm.
going to sit with you until you finish doing them.
Yeah, good, good.
And that helps
Yeah.
tremendously.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Let's flip the question around. If you had a magic wand and there was one thing that you could fix in your business this afternoon, what would it be?
So right now, given that we're getting through product development, would be sort of another one or two of me. I
Mm-hmm.
do have one person involved in the company who is really super outstanding. The others are as well, but if we just need more of them,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and things would go faster.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's a finance question too.
Well, it is,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes you have to work with what you have.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So how can people who want to know more get in touch with you?
Well, very good question. So I am on LinkedIn. You can
Mm-hmm.
connect with me on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's a way to share a calendar invite, but we certainly have a website. It's dnaanalytics.com.
That'll
And
do
I
it.
believe that there is a way on the website to say
Mm-hmm.
contact us, and that will come to me.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Last question. What's most inspiring to you today?
To me, is that every day that we interact with clients and potential clients, just like the ingenuity and the dedication of helping patients, and all of the really ingenious things that people are coming up with to
Mm-hmm.
take what nature has provided with us and to
Mm-hmm.
use those natural processes in a industrial format to better humanity.
Awesome. Awesome. Very good. That's a massively important goal. I mean, the population of this world has gotten really big, but we've got a lot of illness. We've got a lot of different things going on. There are so many opportunities to make things better for people. That's a great place to be.
Yes. Thank you.
Awesome. It's been a great conversation. You've shared a couple of nuggets that I think we snuck out of there. Really good. I especially like the numbers part of that.
Yeah.
I think that's very important. So I
Yes.
encourage everybody watching, save the show, come back and listen to it again because Raymond's given us a couple of good clues as to what we need to be paying attention to. So don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you can get notifications every time a conversation like this drops. And thank everyone who joined us today, and a special thanks to Raymond for sharing and being vulnerable. This has been a really good story. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Raymond.
Well, thank you, Steve. I appreciate being on the show.